Hey guys, so welcome back to another Survivor video. Today we're looking at underrated players who we think should get more attention from the Survivor community. I didn't want to do this alone, so today I have Underdawg, Survivor Underdawg. Shout out your channel.
What's up, everybody? My name's Underdawg Survivor. I also make Survivor videos from time to time, so if you want more Survivor in your life, come on over, check out my channel.
Yep, and like I said, today we're doing underrated players. So each of us have a list of 5 players who we think maybe get overlooked and we think are better players than maybe what the show showed us or just what people think of them in general. And since Underdawg, since you're the guest, why don't you start us out with your first underrated player you think?
Alright, so my first pick is going to be pretty controversial, but it's actually one that both of us had on our list, so I'm going to be talking about him today. And that's going to be the winner of Survivor Edge of Extinction, Chris Underwood. He does not get nearly enough recognition, obviously, because most people consider him to be the worst winner of Survivor, considering that he did get voted out on day 8, which of course you have to knock him for, but you have to really consider everything he did after that point. His social game on the Edge of Extinction was very good, and that's not something that should go overlooked, because as we saw in Winners at War, if you have a bad social game on the Edge of Extinction, it can come back to haunt you when you make it to Final Tribal Council like it did for Natalie. But Chris definitely played well on the Edge of Extinction. He battled back against one of the toughest physical competitors that the show has ever seen in Joe Anglim to get back in the game. And then at Final 6, he made, in my opinion, the most underrated move in Survivor history, which would be getting Lauren to waste her idol on him, even though Lauren was part of the group that voted him out, and she hasn't interacted with him for almost a month, and he was still able to get her to waste her idol on him when she didn't even need to do that, and she could have saved it for next round when she would have needed it. And then he had the half idol, which, again, you could say production kind of rigged it for him. Personally, I don't think it's that overpowered because, again, he hasn't been connecting with anyone for the past 18 days that's still in the game. And he gives it to Rick Devens, and Devens gives it back to him. And Rick said after the show that he actually wouldn't have given the idol back to anybody other than Chris. So that just shows you how spectacular Chris's social game was. And, of course, everybody knows the Final 4 fire-making challenge, what happened there. Chris made the masterful move to take himself out of fire to face Rick Devens and defeat him, and they went on to win the game. So, I mean, that, to me, is the most successful finale episode of Survivor ever, and I feel like he's someone that really adapted from his mistakes, and if he were to play again, I think he would be really a strong player.
Oh yeah, I just agree. Like I said, we both had him on our list, and I replaced them because we're not having him on our list. I think Chris played as good as he could have in the days that he was given. And also, moreover, I think that he was kind of screwed over when he was voted out because the Manu people were kind of just hoping that a swap would come. So they just kind of got rid of Chris hoping a swap would come, which it did, and obviously didn't play out in their favor. And I think even though Chris was voted out, again, I don't think he's the worst person who's won Survivor, but I would still probably rank him in the bottom of my worst winners because he was voted out. I mean, that's a big knock against him. But I think Chris played as well as he could have in those like final 5 days that he was given. And honestly, I think Chris maybe played better than Gavin and Julie in 5 days, and they did it in 39 days, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Julie, what did she really do? I'm kind of struggling to figure out any moves that she made in the game. Gavin did have some agency, which we didn't really see on the show, so I think they could have done a better job of editing him. But from what we saw on the show, Chris definitely did play better in 5 days than the two of them did.
Yeah, Gavin was just way too much of a passive player. A lot of the moves that he wanted to do didn't get it done and stuff like that. And honestly, if I was there, I want to say I would vote for Gavin, but I might have voted for Chris if I was actually there on the island, because it's like so hard to like when you're actually there on the island and when you're actually like just watching as a TV show, because I mean I probably would have been very inclined to vote for Chris if I was out there, given how much he was able to do in those 5 days that he was given, even though he wasn't there for the whole 39 days. And you know, Edge of Extinction, that's the twist of the season. You can't just knock someone for, you know, getting voted out, even though that is very bad. That was kind of like the theme of the season. Now, I think it would have been better if Chris knew the Edge of Extinction was a thing instead of not knowing it was a thing. But still, at the end of the day, I think Chris is a vastly underrated player who I think should definitely get more love, and people just kind of just hate on him just because he's the first ever U.S. winner to get voted out.
Yeah, I mean, they're hating on the twist. What they're trying to do is hate on the twist, but indirectly they're hating on the player who won the season, who benefited from it. It's not Chris's fault that the twist was in the game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, instead of hating on the twist, kind of hate on Chris, which I don't think is fair. And I would honestly love to see Chris come back. I would like to see what Chris could do in a non-Edge of Extinction season. I'd like to see, if he's actually, because if Chris comes back for another season, I think we'll see how good of a player Chris actually is, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I wish he were back for Winners at War, but obviously that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
I think he was going on his honeymoon with his wife or something like that.
And if he wasn't, he probably would have. I think he had like a 2-week span to say yes to going on it. I think Edge of Extinction, the finale aired 2 weeks before Winners at War. So technically he could have been on it, but there's no way he was going to go on it. But I would love to see Chris come back. I do think Chris probably will come back, if I'm being honest. I do think we'll probably see Chris again.
Yeah, I hope so.
But I guess let me get to my pick now. So this is the person that I had to replace for Chris Underwood, and okay. I'm going to sound like the Survivor Reddit community, which I don't want to sound like that, but an underrated player I think is NATALIE BOLTON. I know. And really, like, the main reason why I think she's underrated is because when talking about the Eric blindside where he gives up immunity, I think the person that people talk the least about is NATALIE BOLTON. People usually just talk about Suri, Amanda, and Parvati, but like NATALIE did a lot of the work in the Eric blindside. I mean, I think she was the one that talked to him the most about giving up the idol and stuff and be like, oh, well, you need to make a big move or whatever like that. And she was actually able to convince him, which was pretty crazy. And I think before that, she played pretty aptly too. Throughout the merge, she was able to get herself into a good alliance. And I do think she's a good player that just kind of gets overshadowed over these other really big players like Parvati, Amanda, and Suri.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that of that move, specifically the Eric move, I think she definitely doesn't get as much credit as she deserves for that one, because like that's a move that doesn't happen ever in Survivor, and she was able to pull it off, which just shows her Survivor ability. And I think she would be a lot more properly rated if she just had an entire season under her belt, and that's probably the case with a lot of these people. If Chris had an entire normal season under his belt, if NATALIE had an entire normal season under her belt, I think that she would definitely get a lot more respect. But the biggest problem with NATALIE is that that's really her one big move, because right after that she gets voted out, and she did definitely get too small of an edit in the pre-merge, but we didn't really see anything that she did up until she joined that women's alliance. So that's probably the biggest knock against her game. But again, that move really showed the potential that she has. She just wasn't able to use that potential in other rounds in the game, I would say.
Yeah, and I think the reason why she's probably underrated in the pre-merge is because I don't think she goes to tribal that many times in the pre-merge. I think she's like on the tribe that like usually wins immunity, if I'm not mistaken. All right,
on the swap tribe, I think she only goes to tribal twice with the fans tribe, but she never goes with the swap Irai tribe.
Yeah, so and that's usually what happens. Why the whole Navidi tribe and like Ghost Island was underedited, because they just won every single challenge. So she only went to tribal twice in the pre-merge, so that's probably a big reason behind it. And like you can't really blame someone that doesn't get to play that much just because they won all the challenges in the pre-merge, So, but like she wasn't a good position in both her tribes, I'm pretty sure, where she was at in the pre-merge. And then obviously when she was able to join the women's alliance, that did really good for her. And the biggest knock for her is that she just gets voted out right after Eric. And that's really is just because like she was the only fan left. It was kind of stacked against her the entire time, which she probably should have seen that coming, but it's just, I think she did see it coming, but it was just kind of hard for her to get out of that situation. And really unfortunate that we've never seen NATALIE BOLTON play again. And at this point now in Survivor history, we probably won't ever see her play again. But I guess a quick trivia for you guys is that she was an alternate on Heroes vs. Villains and actually went out to Samoa, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I would have rather seen her be on the Villains tribe and then Parvati take Candace's place, but that may be just me.
I'd rather see her over Danielle. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, that's true as well.
Like Danielle's like the one like clunker in Heroes versus Villains. I don't really get why she was there.
I don't really think Natalie Bolton would have had the same interaction with Amanda at the Treasure Island popcorn.
Oh yeah, I would say that was actually a really good Survivor moment. That Danielle was able to pull off there. But yeah, I mean, really unfortunate. I think that we will probably at this point now never see Natalie Bolton again on Survivor, because I think that she is a pretty good player that kind of gets overshadowed by a bunch of like really massive players that played with her in her season. I mean, she had Cerise, she had Parvati playing on her season, she had Ozzy playing on her season, she had James playing on her season. So like so many big characters that were probably going to get bigger edits than her, that, you know, just it's really unfortunate that she never really got the chance to have that edit, you know.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about my second pick here. And speaking of Natalie, we have the person that she just tricked into giving up the immunity idol. I have Eric on my underrated players list, and here's why. He makes it to Final 5 both times he plays, and in the first time he plays, obviously he made that boneheaded decision to give up his immunity, and he would have made it even further if he didn't do that, but almost nobody in the history of Survivor can say they've made it to Final 5 both times they've played. And in the second time also, like, he got medevaced out of the game. He maybe would have made it further if that didn't happen to him. And post-show, we've learned that was actually somewhat influenced by production. Like, they didn't try to get him evacuated out of the game, but it was kind of their fault that it happened. So both times it wasn't really a traditional vote out, and there was things that could have happened that could have made him go even further. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, it was his time to go. Like, if certain situations didn't happen the way they did, he would have made it to Final 4 or even to the end game. So that just in itself, I'm of the opinion that if you make it really far in the game, no matter how passive you are, most of the time that's something that's worth respecting. Like, even if you're like a Natalie Tenorelli or like a Christina from One World, like, even if you weren't winning that game at all and you didn't really do anything, the fact that you even made it to day 38 or day 39 is something that's worth respecting, in my opinion. And so Eric did that twice, and people only remember him for that one, like, giving up immunity move, because the show shows it like every single episode ever. But if people actually got a chance to look at Eric, he's strong in challenges. He's won challenges both his seasons, especially when he needs to win them. And he's socially a good player. No one ever really wants to vote him out because he's got such a good social game. It's that one move in Micronesia, and then he just really gets under-edited in Caramone as well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem with Eric is that I don't think he wins either time he plays. He definitely doesn't win in Caramone. I don't really see him winning that season. And I think there's a chance that he might possibly win in Fans vs. Favorites, the first one, against Natalie, but it's close, definitely.
I think if he takes out Cochran, he's the clear favorite to win there. But I don't think anyone's voting for him. That's the thing, though. He has 2 rounds to do it if he stays in the game. So maybe there's a chance that he realizes that's his best move. And in that case, like, no one's voting for Dawn. No one's voting for Sherry. No one's voting for Eddie. So I think if he has the awareness to do that, then he probably wins the game, and he probably rewrites his legacy. And it's just unfortunate what happened with production, giving him the wrong, like, medicine. Getting him out of the game. What
happened though? I never heard about that. Did they give him like the wrong antibiotics or something, like what, on Caramone?
Yeah, it was like early in the game he got an infection or something, and it didn't really get bad until the final 6 when it started to really take its toll on him. And so production gave him like some sort of antibiotics for that, but it turns out he was allergic to that, and he didn't really even know that he was allergic to it until after the show. But he started having allergic reaction during tribal council at the final 6, and on the way back to camp, like, they had to take him out of the game.
That's unfortunate. I think he definitely had a shot to win in Micronesia if he was able to get to the final 2 with Natalie and himself, but the likeliness of that happening is very low in my opinion. So I do think,
especially because at the final 5. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't gonna be Eric, it was probably gonna be Natalie. So his best option wasn't really ever gonna happen.
Yeah, that's just kind of unfortunate how it did end up happening. Like those situations where like him getting because like I don't think he wins against Amanda, Suri, or Parvati. I think he has to get to the end with Natalie, and the situation like the chances of that happening were pretty low. And in Caramoan, he has to get to the end with what, like Eddie. I guess he get there with Eddie and Dawn. I don't really know, but like we just for that
or Sherry, really any combination.
As long as Cochran isn't there, I mean, that's just something we'll never know if he wants to get rid of Cochran or not. Because players can say like, "Oh, I would have done this," I would have done that after the show, but you really
after the season, yeah,
you really can't know. But yeah, I do think Eric is kind of an unfortunate situation. He made this one really bad move, which I don't know why he made it, and it kind of just overshadows his pretty, I would say, consistent gameplay through the other seasons.
Yeah. So that's why I say that he's an I mean, I'm not calling him like an all-time great or anything, but I think people definitely look too harshly on his game.
All right, yeah. So my next pick is Hayden Moss from Survivor 27, and you actually had him on your list, right? And you had a
yeah, I did, yeah.
So in my opinion, Hayden Moss should have been in Game Changers over Sierra. And
Game Changers.
And look, or like
he voted out her mom.
Cambodia. Or he could have been on Cambodia instead of her. Either way, wherever Sierra was, I think he should have been there instead. Sierra did not make the move to do the rock flip. I think that was all Hayden. Hayden was the one that like convinced her to flip on her alliance and make her, do the rock draw, which is crazy. I think that like you'd want to have, someone do a rock draw. That's just crazy. And he was able to get it happen, and that he actually was able to go through with it and do the rock draw himself. I think that's just really impressive. I think that like Hayden is like, I think his gameplay was like really consistent over his one season that he played. I think he played really well, and he was just kind of in a bad position at the merge, but he was able to survive through it and make it to like final 5, which is I think is crazy because like he seems like a really physical guy, and I think almost everyone knew that he played Big Brother probably too and won his season as well. And the fact that he was able to stay in the game, even with that, I think is something that people don't really appreciate as much as they should. And obviously, the big move, I'm going to continue to talk about it, is the rock draw. Game changer. Should have been on Game Changers over Sierra.
But, well, you forget that Sierra voted out her mom. I mean, that's just game changing.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Even though even if she didn't vote for her mom, it would have stayed the same.
Yeah, so I don't really that move aside, I think Hayden really showed his game potential in that move, and it's kind of like what you said with Natalie Bolton. Like they both had this one incredible move that would not happen in normal Survivor, where like Natalie gets Eric to give up his immunity, Hayden gets Sierra to draw rocks. 99% of the time that would never work, and so you just really have to credit Natalie and Hayden's like persuasion skills and appealing to the two people that they had to get to do that, which is really impressive. But I think Hayden probably has a better list of other moves that he made than Natalie.
Probably.
That was by far his best move in the game. But after that, then he still technically did have a couple of options to go. His back was up against the wall, but he's definitely more capable of winning immunity challenges than Natalie, so he could have had that avenue. And he also had Sierra on his side after that point, which Natalie had no one on her side after she made Eric give up immunity. It was 3 against 1 versus it was 3 against 2 for Hayden, and he almost convinces Monica to flip over, but he's unable to do that, which is a knock against his game. But he's kind of the de facto leader of the new players in the post-merge, kind of after Aris and Vetus blindside, and it's kind of clear that Tyson's the head of one branch and Hayden's the head of the other branch, and you kind of see him try to make some moves, and they don't all work. Like he tries to target Sierra, and that doesn't work, but he's able to get himself far enough to where he has a legitimate chance in the end game, and that's definitely something that's to his credit, and he definitely should have come back. Like you said, Sierra definitely did not deserve to come back over Hayden. She just got way bigger of an edit and was way more popular with the fans, I guess.
And even with that, like people could say that like Sierra's a more interesting character than Hayden. I thought Hayden I thought he was a pretty fun character, honestly, and also the fact that he was able to survive like what 5 votes or whatever into the merge and still not get voted out, even though there's 2 clear heads of the alliance, is pretty good. And also, I think that his pre-merge game, well, not like very interesting. I think it was pretty good that he, he was able to get in the alliance, stay in the alliance, and then when Brad got voted out, I think he was the only one that kind of stayed with Brad. But then when he realized he had to flip, he did flip, and so I think that that's pretty good. Then for the rest of the pre-merge, he was immune, so we couldn't really see anything from him. But I think his merge game was pretty good. And the biggest knock I kind of have against him is that he somehow lost like a 50-year-old woman in a redemption challenge. I don't really.
But that was a balance challenge, so you can't knock him too much for that. I feel like. And also, balance challenges are just weird.
I also feel like that like people may knock him for like voting out like Monica, but like Monica's like one of the like most like, I don't know like what the word is, but like the player that
wishy-washy players.
Yeah, will like probably never like flip on her alliance, like if anyone else besides herself tells her to do something, even if it's in her best interest to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just kind of it was bad luck. It was just luck of the draw that Monica was kind of like the person he needed to flip, because obviously Tyson and Jervis were never flipping because it was in their best interest to not do it. But I think what people don't talk about is if the rock draw goes like in Hayden's direction, if Tyson draws the rock, which was a very high likelihood, it was like what 3 people drawing the rocks, Hayden potentially wins blood versus water. I think it's close between him and Sierra because they're probably, because it's him, Sierra, and Katie in the final 2. I think it's close, but I think Hayden can pull out the win because he obviously has good jury management because he won a season at Big Brother where he had to obviously manage a jury. So who knows how well he would have been in the final tribal council. I think he has a good shot to win if that rock draw just went his way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he beats Katie pretty handily. I don't know about Sierra because again she seemed to be pretty well liked by her tribe, and she also had Laura on the jury, who obviously is a vote for her. Tina on the jury is obviously a vote for Katie, but I think everybody else he has a legitimate shot of getting their votes. I think like Tyson Jervis really respected his game, so I think right. There's a 33% chance or close to it that he's the winner of the season.
Yeah, I think Aris and Vetus are the 2 votes, the swing votes in that situation, because I think that Tyson and Jervis probably vote for Sierra. I mean Tyson and Jervis, I think they probably vote for Hayden. Monica, I'm not sure. I think she leans Hayden just because Jervis and Tyson are gonna vote for Hayden. Obviously Laura M and Tina are, I think, very clear votes for Sierra. So I think between Aris and Vetus, I think those are the 2 votes which are the swing votes in the situation. Whoever they vote for wins the game.
Yeah, but I mean, Hayden definitely was a lot closer to winning the game than it probably looked like at the merge because he was the head of kind of the secondary alliance behind Tyson and Jervis. So definitely respect for his game.
Yeah, and also the reason why he wasn't able to go on second chance, if you didn't know, is because he played Big Brother and the production thought it'd be like a third chance for him, which is dumb, I might add. So he never actually had a chance.
That's really dumb.
He actually never had a chance to get on second chance. And if he did, I don't know if he gets on second chance, but he should have been on the ballot.
I think he probably gets voted on over someone. He probably gets voted on over Vetus, if I'm being honest.
Vetus or Varner.
Yeah, well,
or like
revisionist history.
Or maybe like Savage. I think he could get over Savage. Apparently Savage was actually the 11th man voted, but since Mike wasn't eligible, he got.
Yeah, Mike Holloway.
Yeah. All right. So who's your next pick then?
My next pick is going to be LJ from season 28 Kagyan, and I think LJ is kind of thought about it as really just the guy that Tony voted out at the final 9, where you really started to see Tony's flip-flopping gameplay and his dominance at the merge. But I think LJ had a serious chance to win. I think if like everybody in the post-merge was at the same final tribal council, you probably have Tony winning it. You probably have Spencer coming in second, and then probably LJ has a serious shot to get third there. So if he makes it to the end with the right people, I think he has a great chance of winning. So LJ's, first of all, he's on the beauty tribe at the beginning. He's kind of leader of the majority alliance of the Beauty Tribe. He also figures out that Morgan was searching for the idol on day 1, and so he goes and searches for it, and he finds it. And when they get to the Swap Tribe, the Swap Purple Tribe, he's able to convince Trish and Tony to flip over, doesn't have to use his idol, and gets one of the Brawn members out, and then sort of solidifies that final 5 alliance, or what was supposed to be the final 5 alliance. And then they go into the merge. They convince they convince Cass to flip over, which wasn't really his doing, but he was sort of like Tony's right-hand man at that point. Like, he was sort of the one consulting Tony and Trish about that. It was
kind of like Trish, I think, that kind of...
Trish convinced her, definitely, yeah.
But LJ was there, you know, he was on the side. And
I think the one scene where, like, Trish told Tony and LJ, like, that really shows you the power dynamic. Like, Trish was doing Tony's dirty work, and then LJ was sort of Tony's right-hand man in that situation. And then Tony, the reason he voted out LJ was because LJ was such a big threat, and because he had already made a lot of good moves in the game, and he would be tough to beat at the end. So that... I mean, you can't really predict the gameplay of Tony Vlachos, especially if it's your first time playing with him. Mm-hmm. So I don't really knock him too much for getting blindsided by Tony there.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, LJ couldn't have known that Tony would have gone on to be probably the best player in Survivor history. You can't just, you can't just plan for that stuff. And I think that's kind of, what kind of gets LJ is that he was playing with probably the best Survivor player ever in Tony Vlachos. He obviously could not have planned for that. And I think LJ, I think he does kind of get overshadowed because he is playing with, like, such a great player like Tony. And because of that, we kind of just get overshadowed. But I think LJ had a pretty decent game before him getting voted out.
So, who is your number 3 pick for underrated players?
All right, my number 3 pick for my underrated players is Reed Kelly from Survivor San Juan del Sur. I think Reed is, like, such an underrated player. I mean, just think about it. I don't know if he quite orchestrates the Jeremy blindside, but he definitely, like, helped out with the Jeremy blindside. And I think Jeremy is one of the best players in Survivor history. And Jeremy didn't even see that blindside coming. He did not see it coming. He was super shocked. So I think that the fact that Reed was able to kind of help that, plan to get together was pretty cool. And also, where Reed went home, he shouldn't have went home, really. I mean, he shouldn't have went home because, like, the reason why he goes home is because Keith says stick to the plan, and John plays his idol. And I think, and because of that, Wes goes home. But if John didn't play his idol, Keith didn't say stick to the plan, Wes doesn't go home, John does, and who knows what happens if John gets voted out there. I mean, Reed is probably now in, like, a better position than he was before, and he can probably make more moves happen. And just because Keith said stick to the plan, that all went in the trash, and Reed was unfortunately voted off right after Wes, which is really unfortunate because I think Reed had a very good shot of winning the game if that didn't happen. And before the merge, we didn't really get to see that much of Reed because he was on the Hunapu tribe or whatever, which kind of just won out. I think he only went to one tribal before the merge, so obviously you can't really knock him for not having a pre-merge game because he just never went to tribal. But he did seem to be in a pretty decent position in both of the non-swap Hunapu and the swap Hunapu. I don't think he's probably ever going home. So I think Reed's a very underrated player.
Yeah, he seemed to be well positioned pretty much that entire game, except for when Josh went home. That kind of hurt his standing, but then he almost made a good move to get himself back, at least to about like a 4-4 tie, where he probably would have been able to flip somebody over and get the numbers, and that probably leads to him winning. But unfortunately, he just really wasn't able to execute very many moves, except for the Jeremy blindside, which wasn't like all his move. That was also sort of Josh's move as well. So that's probably the biggest knock against him, is that he didn't. He had a lot of good ideas and he had a pretty good standing in the game, but he just wasn't able to ever execute anything.
Yeah, and I mean, also, it wasn't his fault that Keith said stick to the plan. That's just,
exactly.
You can't really plan for that,
Yeah, but he definitely had a lot of game potential that he showed. He just wasn't able to This just wasn't a season for him, and maybe in another season he would have done better.
I mean, yeah. Even if that plan works out, where, I mean, what's it? When John goes home, I don't know if he wins the game still, because, I mean, Natalie was also really pushing for John to go home too, you know? Natalie maybe still wins, but Reed is definitely in a better position, I think, if, you know, he is able to pull that move off. And I think he should have won the second chance, because, I mean, I feel like Reed's probably, he seemed like a really big Survivor fan. He probably still wants to play. I mean, I don't know what Reed's doing nowadays, but I just think he had a lot of great, like, plans, you know, great moves that he could have made, and he just unfortunately just couldn't get them together. And for the most part, he usually was just short of not getting them together. Like, he seemed like all his plans seemed to almost work out, and then something happens and it just didn't, which is unfortunate, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So are we good to move on to? Yeah. So my next pick is from Guatemala. It's going to be Cindy, who was voted at the final 5. Obviously, maybe one of the most infamous vote outs you could say in Survivor history because of the car reward curse. But that wasn't. I don't really feel like that was her fault. That was more just Rafe being salty that he didn't get a car, which is, you can't really predict that. I don't really feel like she made a bad move in trying to keep the cars. It was more just like someone got pissed off and wanted to vote them out, which is something that in most Survivor seasons probably wouldn't happen. And I think she had a good social game. She was in the majority for a lot of that post-merge, and it was really just until that final 5 when her game kind of fell apart. She was also aligned with Judd, and Judd got taken out in the final 6, and so that kind of knocked her down a little bit in the social standing. But throughout most of the game, she was in the majority. She was the pre-swap. I always forget. I think it was Nakum, the one that only went to tribal one time, and that was a unanimous vote. So she didn't really need to ever play strategically there. And then in the post-swap tribe, she did get flipped on by Judd, but that didn't really hurt her too much because she was never really a target. She was physically strong, and she went on later, as we saw, Judd was pretty well aligned with her, so that didn't really hurt her standing at all. And Judd really had no reason to flip there either. He just wanted to assert his dominance, I guess. That was kind of a weird decision there. So
you can't really plan for what Judd does, because
exactly, you can't plan anything for what Judd does. So you can't really knock her anything for her pre-merge game. She only went to tribal twice, so we didn't really get to see a lot of her, but then we saw her be part of that majority alliance and probably the most tolerable person out of that majority alliance. Like, if those 6 people from the swap Nakum tribe make it all the way to the end, she probably wins out of all of them. Maybe Rafe, but he was not super liked by the jury. I feel like by the end of the game, if he still makes all the moves he makes, and versus Sydney, definitely had respect from a lot of people, and it was just the car was kind of screwed her over. She was just a victim of the curse, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with, like, I think that she was a pretty just, like, consistent player. Definitely, like, a forgotten player, because most of the cast from Guatemala is a forgotten player. But she definitely, like, most of her moves works out. Like, she votes out Brandon when Brandon goes home. She votes out Bobby John when Bobby John goes home. She votes out Jamie. Like, she was consistently in the majority alliance. And honestly, I think the reason why she goes home is because while Rafe is a good player, I think Rafe is definitely an emotional player. And I think since Rafe was kind of pissed off about the car, I think other players like Danny just kind of took advantage of that and was able to, like, oh yeah, let's get Cindy out because she won a car. And because of that, they were able to vote out Cindy. So I think that's kind of like the biggest thing with her is that the reason why she goes home, I think, is because she won the car and then Ray got salty, like you said, which is, again,
it's just a no-win situation for her.
I know. It's so, like, if you give them the cars, you get no car, and if you take the car, Rafe, it gets salty at you, and because Rafe, like I said, an emotional player, I think Rafe is a pretty decent player, but I think he definitely made, like, a lot of emotional decisions in the game that maybe weren't his best interest. And so, getting rid of Sydney, and I think Sydney had, like, a chance to win. Like, I don't think she wins against Rafe. She definitely has a chance to win against Lydia if she's able to get Lydia there in the final.
Probably wins against Stephanie.
Probably. I think almost everyone wins against Stephanie besides Lydia, probably, right?
Yeah, she probably wins against Judd too.
Yeah, Judd just wasn't a very well liked player.
It
But
is just Judd.
But like the biggest problem is like I don't know if she can get her into the final two. I don't know if she can get her and Lydia in the final two. I don't know how she can get her and Steph in the final two. But I definitely think she was just a pretty consistent player that kind of gets forgotten.
Yeah, definitely. And also something about her, she's a pretty physical player, which someone like Lydia on that season, or a lot of the women that went home pre-merge that season, were not very physical, and that's kind of why she stayed around. So that's also something that helps her game out.
Sure. All right, so can I go on to my next pick then?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my next pick is birthday boy himself. It is Rodney from Survivor Worlds Apart. Now, I know, obviously, Rodney gets a lot of hate, and, I guess some of it's warranted, but I think what people forget to realize about Rodney is I think Rodney actually had a very good shot to win, actually, because, like, at the very end, if he's there with his final three he wanted to happen, which was probably himself, Dan, and Will Sims, Rodney wins that easily. I think Rodney was actually, like, while people may not have liked him, I think he was kind of like a respected player. If he was in the final three with his preferred final three, I think he probably gets like the votes of Mike, the votes of Sierra. He definitely doesn't get Shireen's vote, but he probably gets Tyler's vote. So the reason why I think he's so underrated is because I think he had a way better shot at winning than most people realize that he did.
Yeah, I think the edit didn't do him any favors. Like, they just showed all the points where they could dunk on him as much as possible, as like dunking on him as a person, not even as a game player. He definitely was very strong in the game. He had a majority of lines. He ran the majority of lines for the entire game. And it was really just because Mike won all those immunity challenges that he wasn't able to get his way and make it to the end of the game. And like you said, I think people respected him. They maybe didn't like him, but they respected his game, which is something you wouldn't see from the show. But they, of course, like, if he did make it to the final three, they probably would have edited him differently and more accurately, probably, to what actually happened. Where if that was the case, then we probably view Rodney in a little bit of a higher regard.
Yeah, and I mean, also I think the big thing with Rodney is like, he was in a really good position until Mike somehow found out. I forgot how he found out, but then Mike found out that he was planning on.
He just like overheard him.
Yeah, he just overheard him.
He just walked up on him for whatever reason.
I mean, I guess you kind of can't plan for that. I mean, just I guess go further out. I don't know. But
yeah, just don't be heard.
Yeah, just don't be heard. Which that's probably the thing that ruined Rodney's game, is that Mike knew that Rodney wanted the game out. If Mike doesn't know, he possibly gets him out, because I think Mike started winning like challenges the vote after they wanted to get rid of him, because I think he played as idol in that vote where they wanted to get rid of him, so he doesn't go home. So yeah, I think Rodney had a way better shot at winning than most people give him credit for, and that's why he's on my list. And I mean, if he's there with Dan himself and Will, I mean, he definitely wins in my opinion.
He definitely had a lot of paths to the end where he could have won, and people don't really respect that just because they don't like him as a person. But I think his gameplay was very sound, and if he came back again, which he probably won't come back again, just considering production probably doesn't like him very much, but if he did, he would probably play pretty well, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think production only likes, like, what, Mike, Carolyn, and Joe probably from the season. I think that's the only people they like from the season. I guess Sierra, because she came back for Game Changers, because NATALIE...
And favorite Game Changer.
Well, I mean, the only reason why she's on the cast is because NATALIE would have been on, but she, like, had some medical thing happen to her, and then for some reason her backup was Sierra, which is so weird.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, like, SoKim, I guess. For some reason, production likes SoKim a lot from this season.
Imagine being a first boot and then being called a Game Changer. That's just...
I mean, she was in the running to be on Game Changers, and production realized, oh, wait, we can't have a first boot be on Game Changers. And
you can't have a merge boot who talked about America.
I know. Seriously, yeah, America. I mean, very, very game changer. I know that in America flipped on Britain. Bozo. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Next pick?
My final pick for underrated players is going to be Brett from Samoa, and he's another person, like a lot of the people that we've talked about today, that's the victim of the edit, kind of like Rodney, kind of like Eric and Karamoan. where he played better than we were really shown, and that's why people don't really remember him. The only reason that people remember him is because he almost made it to the end, and he won all those immunity challenges and almost cost Russell the win, which Russell wouldn't have won anyways, but just kidding, Russell was robbed. Brett, really, he was one of the best social, maybe even the best social player on that season, aside from the winner, NATALIE White, because he was able to be the last person standing from that Galoo tribe. He never was a target until it was literally just him and I forget who's, like Monica and Shambo were the last one left, and then him. And so then he started winning all those immunities, and so they couldn't get him out. But up until that point, they kept targeting all the other people, like Eric, like Laura, John, Danger Dave, Kelly. No one remembers Kelly at all, but Brett's social game really was able to carry him through that, and we didn't. It's tough for them to show social games, which is kind of a big knock against like people like Michelle, which is why she doesn't get as much credit as she deserves. So, because it's tough to show that on TV, but he really did. Just the edit did him no favors. He just got no screen time at all until like he started winning those immunities. And if he were to come back again, I think the people that really can do well when they come back again are the social players, in my opinion, because they don't have a target on their back, but no one's going to want to vote them out early, and then they can get their footing. And I think that definitely applies for Brett. As we saw, he's physically capable, he's socially capable, maybe needs to work on the strategy a little bit, but overall, definitely a good player. Solid all around. I think he was one challenge away from winning it all.
I mean, yeah, if he's in the final three with like anyone, he wins. I think Brett, if he's in the final,
he won in that post merge, I think.
And I think the fact that he was able to stay for so long in the post merge, because he obviously is like this physical guy and a pretty social guy too. So I think the fact that he was actually able to stay over everyone else is really good. I think he just is a player that probably can manage his threat level very good, and we kind of saw that in Samoa with him being this pretty well-rounded player, in my opinion, that stayed over a bunch of other players that probably aren't better than him, like Shambo and stuff like that. So, and then obviously, the only reason why he stays though, which I think he kind of got to fall over this, the only reason why he gets to the final four is because he goes on that little immunity streak, right when it's necessary to. And I when it comes to like player rankings, I do like if someone's like a good physical player, I kind of take that into account because that's part of the game, being physical, obviously. So he is a good physical player because he was, I think he went on like, was it a 3 immunity streak or like
3 in a row, and then it was just him and Russell in the final immunity challenge.
Russell's actually one of the best physical players ever, actually, if you didn't know. So yeah, really unfortunate. And the thing is that like he wins against anyone in that post merge, I think. Because he wins against Russell, he wins against like Mick, he wins against NATALIE, he wins against Sean Fincher, he wins against Shambo. So I mean, yeah, he does win against every person in that, and the only reason why he wasn't able to do that is because he lost an immunity challenge. And I think he definitely should have gotten a better edit. Like he got almost no confessionals the entire game up until where he was about to get voted out. He like started getting a bunch of confessionals, and like the second to last episode he got voted out. They definitely should have edited them more because he basically wasn't there the entire season. He was just always in the background. You never saw him until it was too late and he got voted out.
Yeah, and as I said, like his strategical game definitely needs some work, and that's why you said like at that point he needed to win immunities. If he had a better strategical game, he might have been able to lead the Galoo tribe to maybe get to Final 8. And then if he's at Final 8 with the rest of the Galoos, he probably ends up finding a path to the end from there to win the game. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to have the strategic agency to really tell Galoo what the correct move was at that point. So fortunately for him, he needed those immunities, and he just wasn't able to do it. But after that point, like from Final 7 on, he played about as well as he could have given his circumstances from there, except for obviously the final immunity challenge.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. And I'm going to say one more time, I think the fact that he wins against literally everyone else is pretty impressive, and I think people should respect that more. About Brett, and the only reason why I don't think Brett probably gets talked about more is because he just got such a bad edit on his season. I don't understand why he got it. Maybe he just isn't an interesting person. I don't know.
I think just the people who edited Samoa were like on crack.
Or they were just Russell fans, probably.
Russell stands,
big
yeah.
Russell fans. I mean, but how can you not, honestly? But you know.
Yeah, like you're really gonna edit Natalie White more than Russell? Come on.
You're really gonna edit Brett over Russell, but like I think Brett still could have gotten a good edit even with the giant edit Russell got.
He definitely could have, because I mean they were on separate tribes in the pre-merge,
Yeah.
and all the content in the pre-merge on the Glue tribe revolved around Russell, Swan, and Shambo.
Mm-hmm. Which I mean, I guess I get it for Russell Swan. I kind of get like why because he was a big character and probably would have made it decently far if he hadn't got evacuated. But you know, it's just kind of unfortunate. So should I get on to my final underrated players?
Final pick, yeah.
Okay, this is gonna be one that probably not a lot of people expect because he is a pre-merge player, and for that, an early boot of a pre-merge player. But I have Brendan Shapiro from season 36.
Ben Shapiro.
No, that was from season 36.
Hear your facts and logic to explain this.
Yeah, no, Brendan Shapiro, he uses facts and logic to win the game. No, so yeah, obviously, Brendan went home, what, fourth? Very, very early, I get in the, you know, the grand scheme of things. But I think that he played very well in his early game. And the only reason why he goes home is because of Bradley and the fact that his entire game was staying Navidi strong. Because, I mean, Brendan never goes home ever if Malolo goes to any tribal council. I don't think that ever happens. And I think he set up a really good alliance and was kind of like the leader and the figurehead of his alliance. Also, he was able to win Malolo that first challenge too. He picked the right people, which I think was pretty good on his part. He was actually able to win Malolo a challenge, which, if you guys don't know, Malolo doesn't do ever. They don't win challenges ever except for maybe the third challenge. And I think that Brendan Shapiro is just someone that I think really would have played a really great game if he just was on a different season. I think the fact that he was on Ghost Island really hurt him, and I think he would have been actually a really great player if he was on any other season.
I definitely think he's a prime example of someone that got swap screwed, because like they didn't need to switch tribes at final 18.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not something you ever need to do, and that's the only reason he goes home. Like, he's definitely well integrated within the majority of the original Malolo tribe, and it just sucks that he had such a target on his back just because how the numbers worked out on his swap tribe. I mean, it's not really his fault.
Also, the fact that Ghost Island just didn't have a lot of competent players. I mean, there was Bradley, who I don't think is a good player, honestly. He was really annoying, and all he wanted to do was stay Navidi strong, which, you know, just staying with your tribe the entire game is obviously a great, you know, move. Sebastian, who I think is an idiot, honestly. I don't think Sebastian's a very good player. Kellen, who's also another player who just was never going to flip because I don't even know why. And yeah, I think Brendan got one of the worst draws in Survivor history when it came to his swap tribe, and I think he really would have been a very, very good player if he just, for some reason, you know, if Ghost Island just didn't swap at final 18, because I don't know why they thought after 2 boots of the season that was a good time to switch up the game. The round that Brendan went home on should have been the round where they swapped tribes, and if they didn't swap tribes, I think Brendan stays. I don't see him ever going home in that pre-merge. The only reason why he does is just because he probably gets the worst draw in Survivor history, which just kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do with swap screwed players. You just have to accept you're never going to probably see them again because they went home pre-merge. And then you just have to cry about it.
Yeah, and I think the Ghost Island has a lot of swap screwed players like Brendan, Stephanie, James. Not Bradley. Bradley sucks. But I think
Ty Bradley,
that was all him. He was the reason why I went home. They threw a challenge just because they didn't like it. I cannot tell you how satisfying it was to watch Bradley go home right before the merge. I was like standing up and cheering when I saw Bradley get it. That's another video for another time, saying why Bradley sucks. But yeah, I think Brendan is a very underrated player. I just kind of chose Brendan to be on this list just because I'm just a big I'm a Brendan stan. You know, I just no. It's just because I was looking over like the season stuff, and I wanted to have like one pre-merge player on my underrated players, so I just kind of chose Brendan from Ghost Island.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of pre-merge players, me and Survivant are going to be doing a video on my channel talking about pre-merge players that we want to see come back for a second shot if they ever do a season, something like pre-merge players, second chance version. That's we're sort of building somewhat of a dream cast. So if you want to check that out, it's going to be on the Underdawg Survivor channel. So be sure to check that out. And then Survivant, you want to wrap things up?
Yeah, so make sure you go subscribe to Survivor Underdog and ring the bell, because I will be on this channel hopefully very soon, and we're gonna be talking about pre-merge players who maybe not be the best players, maybe good players, we don't know, but we think they should be on Survivor again. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. In the comments, tell me players who you think are underrated, and thank you guys for watching.